Well, right now, young Muslims are being radicalized in the UK and across the globe by groups known as migrant jihadists. They travel to the West and to battlefields around the world trying to mobilize other Muslims, and this could pose a serious threat to the United States. Joining us now, Walid Phares, a Fox News Middle East and terrorism analyst. He's also the author of The Lost Spring, U.S. Policy in the Middle East and Catastrophes to Avoid. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk about some of these young men who are going around to join ISIS or Al-Qaeda. We're not talking about guys from third world countries. We're talking about middle-class young men from industrialized nations. Why are they doing this?
Well, this has a long history, Heather. Some 30 years ago, the Muslim Brotherhood chapters throughout Western Europe first, and then after 1990 into Central and Eastern Europe founded chapters. Of these chapters, you have jihadist Salafists who actually started to join Al-Qaeda and now are joining ISIS. One of the things that the jihadists have done in Europe was a series of attacks inside Europe. Remember the 7/7 attack in London? You have also the attack in Madrid in 2004, and you had the killing of the rugby soldiers.
What is inspiring these guys to want to do this right now? I mean, they're from nice countries. Why give it all up and go to Syria to commit these terror acts?
They're not doing it as tourists, but as terrorists. What happened in the beginning is, before radicalization, is indoctrination. There is a large pool of individuals in Western Europe. Doesn't matter if they are ethnically Arabs or Pakistanis or even convert from Europe. They have been indoctrinated. Once that happens, then you have organizations such as Al-Qaeda and others who would come and recruit them.
Okay,
so
let's talk
first,
about that. Let's talk about that indoctrination then. That sometimes happens from friends. It sometimes happens from some imams. And I want to point out our viewers to one in particular. He's in the UK. He's notorious there. He appears, by the way, all the time on the BBC and other popular channels. His name is Anjem Chowdhury, and he's believed to have possibly played a role in having radicalized Abdel Bari, the man who beheaded James Foley. Here he is right here. What is being done to stop some of these radical imams from spouting their hate?
The problem in Western liberal societies, including in Great Britain, but I would say even here, is that we don't act against ideology. We don't have legislation against ideology as the Germans or the French have against Nazism, for example. And because we haven't had this possibility, we are waiting, law enforcement are waiting for him to make a mistake with the law. And he's very careful. He knows exactly. He actually was a lawyer. So as long as you cannot, get him on the ideology, he could run and indoctrinate for the caliphate, for Sharia law, his own interpretation, and it's very difficult to stop him.
And he does in fact call for Sharia law. Let's bring up one of his tweets. A lot of these guys are on social media nowadays. He writes, "Whatever Cameron may do, they can't stop the rise of the awakening giant called the Muslim Ummah. Sharia will one day be the law in the UK." Of course, that's not illegal, but he does say some really offensive things. For example, refusing to denounce the beheading of James Foley, and also at the time, remember Lee Rigby, he was that British soldier who was hacked to death in the streets a couple of years ago. He refused to denounce that too.
Refusing to denounce is not illegal. That's the problem. Basically, he could do anything. He could call for the caliphate, for the principality, Imara, as you just said. He could even say, "I support Al-Qaeda," basically with words, and nothing could happen. The only thing that could happen under that law, under these laws, is if he is materially, physically supporting the terrorists. And he's very careful. He's doing 95% of the work, and the last 5% the jihadists do.
All right, but one interesting thing that they have in the UK that we don't have here is something called, and I'm not saying we should have it here, but it's called an ANBO law. And it's pretty much a toothless law that's akin to public nuisance laws, where some of these imams are by name prevented from going out by law. They're prevented from going out and basically trying to indoctrinate people to speak some of this hate speak. Do those laws have any teeth? Are they doing anything?
They are a defensive measure, the last measure. This is an aspirin. This is some sort of aspect of moderation, while these imams have done a lot of work already. I mean, out of 100 jihadists indoctrinated, they could stop 1 or 2. The Saudis have tried to do it. The Moroccans have tried to do it. Not very efficient.
All right, Walid Phares, thank you so much. This is going to be an ongoing conversation, certainly, as we look at the number of young men who are joining ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliated groups around the globe. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.